to Love Your Food. This week we have a beautiful summer recipe for you. This is a delicious chilled fish ceviche. We have some beautiful fresh fish that we got in our local market here. It's an amazing Spanish-inspired summer recipe. Lots of bright flavors, great color as you can see here, and here's some ingredients to get started. So we're going to start with some red onion. We have some cucumber. We're going to use some tomatoes. We have some limes. We're going to be using the lime juice. Some avocado. We're going to be using some cilantro as well. Some garlic. Some hot pepper. We have a guajillo this week. And we're going to start with some actual special preparation on our onion here. So we don't want it to be enormous pieces of onion. We're just going to have some nice smaller pieces, but we want to cut the sharpness a little bit. Now the recipe we found actually had a treatment for the onion to make sure it's a little softer, a little rounder flavor. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into pretty thin, nice sized slices here. So that's about how big we're going to get it. Chef Caleb with the usual knife work. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this into a bowl. We are going to salt the onion. There you go. That's about the size we're looking at here. You want to make sure it's a little bit flat, and we're going to add a great deal of salt. Actually, we want to really salt this. It's going to take some of that bitterness out of the onion. So just give it a good little massage. Make sure that there's some pretty good contact between all the onion and the salt, and give it a little push down. And you can see already, just from a little bit of mixing here by hand, that some of the juices are already coming out. So we are going to leave that. We're actually going to leave that for about 15 minutes. And just let that, it's almost like a quick pickle. It's going to cure very quickly in that salt, and we're going to actually rinse it off. We're going to rinse some of that salt out of there. So you see Chef Caleb here, just giving it a good rinse, making sure we're going to get a lot of the salt out. And we're going to use some cold water for this. Make sure your water is good and cold. And then we're going to strain this, and that's going to come back into our bowl here. There we go. And you can see it's a little bit softer, sort of almost like it's been cured or pickled. It's a very simple little way to sort of calm down the sharpness of the onion. Now we like the look of the little rounds of the chili peppers, so we're just going to cut really thin little rounds. This one turned out not to be all that spicy. You can really control the heat by giving a little taste, making sure if it's hot, you use less. If it's not as hot, you can always add another. You can add more. You can use habanero. You can use whatever you like flavor and heat-wise in your own ceviche. And then we're going to add actually quite a lot of lime juice. Now, ceviche is a cured dish. So we're basically going to be curing our fish, and white fish is traditional. We're going to be curing our fish in lime juice. So we're actually going to be squeezing rather a lot of limes. Here Chef Caleb is just squeezing them by hand. And we're just going to collect all the juice from these limes. There we go. So this is almost as much as we wanted. Of course, all of the amounts for the ingredients are going to be in the description below as normal. And there we go. So we have all of our lime juice here. And from here, we're going to add a little bit of garlic. Now, we are going to chop the garlic, but what we're actually going to do is, I think we showed you this in the roasted chicken recipe, the one we did in the cast iron. Is once it's chopped, so Chef Caleb just going to give all of the garlic a little bit of a chop to make sure it's in good small pieces. There we go. So you want to just basically give it a nice sort of a fine dice, a fine chop there. A little bit of salt and a little bit of oil. So we're going to use some nice olive oil here. And instead of using a garlic press, we're going to crush the garlic with the flat of the knife. So uh, it takes a little practice to get it right, but you can see Chef Caleb here, he's just sort of running that the edge of the knife across the garlic and just crushing it against the cutting board. It helps to have a good sharp knife for this and a good solid cutting board. So plastic works fine for this. We have this end-on bamboo cutting board that is very, very solid, very, very tough. So this works very well for this. And you can see it doesn't take very long. We're making this into a paste, basically. And it will spread out quite a lot, but don't worry. You can scoop it all up on your knife. And that's about the consistency we're going for here. And we're going to put that into our mix here. And there we go. We're going to add the lime juice to that now. And here's our fish. So we have several different kinds of fish here. We have our halibut. The first one there was our sea bass. That one is a rockfish. So if your fish comes with skin, you can always peel it. We have a nice sharp fillet knife here for doing that. So you just want to run it between the meat and the skin. It helps to have this nice thin flexible blade. That's sort of the whole purpose of this knife. Sometimes if the fish is really delicate, it'll take a little bit of extra care, but once it's removed from the skin, we're just going to cut this into sort of little bite-sized pieces. So we want nice little small pieces to cure the fish in our lime juice cure. So once you've cut it into sort of long fingers, this is a great time to check for bones or scales or anything that may be remaining on the fish or stuck to it. If you find bones or little bits of connective tissue in there, now's the time to sort of just try and cut those out if you can. That's about the size we're looking for, so Chef Caleb's just going to cut that into nice even-sized slices. And the whole time we're doing that, we're just going to be feeling the fish to make sure that we're getting any bones or, like I said, little bones or bits of connective tissue or anything out of it at the time. You don't want to. It's not a great surprise to find that in your ceviche. So we're going to try and keep that on top of the cure, not touching it. We're going to keep it on top of the veggies while we get the rest of the fish ready. So this is the our next fish here. We're just going to slice this up. This is the rockfish. And again, just about the same size. It helps to have everything just roughly the same size in there. It all cures at about the same rate. And this is our halibut. Now this one also came with skin and also came with some bones, so we did try to cut those out as much as we possibly could. So we're just going to get a little gap between the meat and the skin there and give it a good sharp little slice just along the edge. It is a little bit easier to do it if you keep the skin flat against your board and the meat on top. So there we go, skin off. And then we did find these pretty big sort of pin bones in there. If you don't have like a bone tweezers, you can just cut them out like this, or you can just pull them out with your hand. It's a little tricky because they tend to grip pretty well and they are a little slippery, so we find it just a little easier to cut them out. Now the halibut also is a nice firm fish, so we're going to cut these into those nice fingers again. and then just like the other one, sort of into those nice little bite-sized pieces. That's a good time to make sure, again, that you're catching all those little bits of bone or connective tissue if there's anything in there, so you can make sure that it's not a surprise later. So we're going to get that into our mix. And then once we have all of that fish done, you actually see some of the bottom pieces are already starting to cure. They're already starting to look a little cooked. The lime juice is starting to basically cure the fish and make it look cooked. So we are going to add a little bit of salt. And the white balance is a little off. Everything looks a little bit red right now. But this is going to go into the fridge for a little while. So we're going to cover that, put it in the fridge. And then just before we're ready to serve, we're going to make this salad to mix with it. So we're going to start by chopping up our cilantro. And this can just be sort of a rough chop. And then turn it and give it a nice another little rough chop as well. Now we are measuring this. The way we're measuring our leafy greens here is we're going to be putting it into our measuring cup and giving it a little push down. And that's sort of how you want to gauge the volume of your cilantro for this. That's just about the right amount there. So we're going to get that into our bowl. Then we're going to take our cucumber and we're just going to slice the ends off. And Chef Caleb's going to make this into some nice long thin strips so that he can cut it into sort of a finer dice. I think you saw this recently with some other recipes we did for our Asian slaw when we were doing matchsticks with them. This time we're actually going to be making them more into sort of a finer dice than that. And there we go. That's about the right size for that. And we do want sort of a consistency and flavor and that sort of thing here, so we are going to measure this as well. And once again, we're going to have all the proportions and amounts in the recipe in the description below. And that's going to go right in there. We're also going to do the same with our tomatoes. So we've got these nice little heirloom tomatoes. We're going to just cut the stems out. And then, just like the other ingredients, Chef Caleb's going to cut them into sort of a dice. So we're going to get some nice thick slices here. And he's going to turn that to the side and cut them into strips and then dice. So again, you want a very sharp knife for this. Tomatoes tend to require a lot of sharpening. Otherwise, they get a little bit crushed, which is fine. It will affect the final texture, but it's not the end of the world if some of your tomatoes get a little squished. And I jumped the gun. I was going right over to the bowl, but we are going to measure this first. And Chef Caleb's going to make sure he gets as much of the juice off the cutting board as he possibly can. He's going to collect that on his knife. And here we go. So we're going to put about the same amount of tomato as we did the cucumber. Just proportion-wise. And then that's going to go into the bowl. And already you've got a really great color in there. This is going to go amazing with those beautiful fish we have. We're also going to add an avocado. Now, this recipe can sit for a little while. Now, this avocado is a tiny bit past its prime, but it was delicious. This recipe can sit for a little while, but the longer it sits, the the more the avocado is going to sort of break down. So when you serve it fresh, the avocado is a really nice sort of almost al dente texture, depending on how fresh your avocado is, of course. This one was very ripe, but if you serve it the next day, which is fine, the lime juice and the salt really cures that fish, so it's really fine for a couple of days. But the avocado will change texture over the course of a couple of days very, very quickly. So just something to be aware of. So again, we're just going to cut this into these nice little sort of bite-sized pieces. We didn't bother to measure the avocado. We just sort of knew how much that we wanted one. And then once again, we do want a little bit of salt in here, just to bring some of the juices out. A little bit of fresh black pepper as well. Looks amazing already. Now, from here, we are going to add our ceviche. So here it has been curing for quite some time, actually. We've already been curing it for a little over half an hour. And you can see the fish, it looks cooked already. It's been curing in that salt and lime juice for a little while now. And it is ready to go. So we're going to mix this all together. You just want to give it a really gentle mix. You don't want to break up the avocado. You don't want to break up the nice little pieces of fish in there. This is a beautiful, fresh, very wonderfully colored recipe. Lots of great colors, lots of great flavors. It's beautiful, bright, citrusy, tart, and it has this beautiful seafood aroma all the way through. It's really, really amazing. Great for summer parties. It goes well as a side for grilled things or as an appetizer. And then once you've got everything well blended, nice and mixed together here, we're just going to serve that. So we're going to put that on a nice plate all by itself here. Very, very simple. Really delicious. It does take a little time because you do need to wait for a couple of things to cure in this one. So you do have to wait for that first onion to get its treatment. We're just going to put a little bit of olive oil on top of there. Garnish with a little bit of basil. And that's it. That's the whole thing. So as I said, you do need to wait. You need to wait for that onion to cure, and then you do need to wait for the fish to cure in the lime juice. But after that, I mean, it's super, super easy. Very, very simple. Absolutely delicious. Will totally impress people at a party if you're doing this as an appetizer or just as sort of a party food. You can serve this with tortilla chips, serve it with crackers, or just with a fork, whatever you like. It's all up to you. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.